Thank you so much for connecting to this webinar today, and welcome back. This is the fourth episode of ESI, a webinar series where we discuss how entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation are contributing to shape the post-pandemic recovery across the ASEAN +6. I am Giulia Mole-Marsan, Area Director for Strategy and Partnership, and as ever, I'm here with TJ Oy from Curated Connectors, a Singapore-based startup, and Nina Maulidina, also from ERIA, to co-host this webinar series. Today we cover a topic we have been quite active lately at ERIA, that is women in the digital economy and women innovators. We are going to hear from fantastic speakers, entrepreneurs, and also people who contribute to shape the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems in their own countries, with a focus on women and girls. And we will hear very interesting stories from their experiences in Australia, India, Singapore, and Cambodia. There is a lot of dynamisms in this region when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation. And also the role of women can and should play as a channel to speed up the recovery. But we know it's not new. While things are slowly improving and are actually not looking too badly in the region, we also show that in our papers. I think you will receive some links to our publications on this topic. But still, we know there is a long way to go because there are different barriers, obstacles, biases that make typically the life of women entrepreneurs a little bit difficult. This is also a very important topic, well, obviously for our societies, but for the economic development of the region. Because let's repeat it once again, there is a growing body of research showing how diversity, including gender diversity, is good for innovation and finding solutions to complex problems. Gender diversity is also very good for companies, as companies with, for instance, gender diversity in their leadership tend to perform better. So to sum up, we really need to incorporate different points of view when we try to find solutions to complex problems, including, of course, the point of view of women and girls. For those of you who are interested, I was mentioning our research, keep an eye at the chat box, but we also have a number of videos on our ERIA YouTube channel on this topic, where you can also find the previous recording of the other episodes of our webinar series, ESI. Now, before giving the floor to TJ, who will introduce our speakers in detail, let me just remind you to please keep your microphone on mute during the webinar, but we have a chat box, so let's use it and feel free to interact with us, the speakers, and also ask questions via the chat box, because we will use your questions later during the Q&A. But now I think it's time to start by introducing the speakers, and so I immediately give the floor to TJ. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Julia. Thank you to our distinguished speakers for joining us this afternoon, and also for all the participants, almost 200 of you that are here to be with us through these conversations. Let me just quickly dive in, because I'm interested and I'm excited to really introduce our speakers to you, and then to have them share their stories with you. First, we have Ms. Samira Tolo. She's the co-founder and CTO of Albit, based in Australia. She's always been passionate about innovation through technology. Together with her brother Mortaza Tolo, they co-founded Albit, a world's first non-custodial digital assets exchange that combines P2P with escrow functionality. Now, if you don't know what that means, feel free to pose her a question and get her to explain and share a little bit more. Better still, perhaps you may want to link up with her on LinkedIn. Samira has a background in electrical engineering focused on renewable power generation and IoT. Her journey into entrepreneurship has been nothing short of eventful, from multiple successful race rounds, team expansion, even as she learned many fruitful lessons along the way. She is now an advocate for blockchain innovation in Australia, while also expanding Albit's operations. So do join me in welcoming Samira to this conversation. Welcome. Thank you, Samira.
Thank you, TJ, for that fantastic introduction. And yes, so I will expand on what we do at Elbait, because yeah, it is a bit of a mouthful. So yet again, I'm co-founder of Elbait, which is the world's first non-custodial cryptocurrency exchange. So in simple terms, what that basically means is that we do not hold cryptocurrency at any stage of the transaction. And we really think that this is the way of the future for the cryptocurrency industry and digital assets altogether. So maybe I'll share a little bit of an unknown fact to many people. So obviously with 2021 and COVID, one of the other hot topics that were really, really talked about globally was the boom in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is fantastic for the industry. But a lesser known fact was that there were 28 successful cryptocurrency exchanges that were hacked, and that contributed to around $1.9 billion of digital assets being stolen. And so this is exactly the problem that we are trying to fix with Elbait's trading model, where we do not hold cryptocurrency within the exchange itself. So that's completely removing the risk entirely from the process. So yeah, my love into entrepreneurship and this business really comes down to solving a really global issue. That was my lure for blockchain and cryptocurrency. I believe that it is a technology that has global impact. And so I wanted to participate in that while it was still young. And I think it is still young. So there is definitely room for more keen people to start their journey into blockchain and cryptocurrency altogether, if it is something that sparks your interest. And that's what I've also been really kind of focusing on these past few quarter, I would say, where I'm trying to encourage more young people and more females to participate in this space. I feel like there is such a huge opportunity for all of us to get involved. So yeah, I'm really happy to join the discussion tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Let me move on to our next speaker. She is Ms. Swapna Moore, State Chairperson for the Confederation of Indian MSMEs in Maharashtra in India. She is also a successful serial entrepreneur, a realtor, restaurateur, as well as an educator, wife of a wing commander from the Indian Air Force, mother of 2 kids. Multitasker, if you ask me. She is co-founder of several businesses, besides being that state chairperson of the Confederation. Swapna has been instrumental in nurturing large teams to success with her adept understanding of human behavior and organizational requirements. Her style of leadership has won accolades from her colleagues in the realty and hospitality industry alike. You know, as a woman in the realty business, especially in India, which is traditionally male-dominated, she has defied pressure with elan and steered the businesses to success. You know, her efforts has led to, of course, definitely her receiving many accolades, recognitions of her achievements, and I think more importantly, her desire to empower women. So, Swapna, perhaps let's do it this way. Why don't you share with us your story? What got you to be in this industry and what drives you? The floor is yours. Okay, it seems we have a little bit of a technical freeze. Hi, Swapna, are you able to hear us? Not to worry. I will put you on hold first. I will come back to you shortly. Let me move on to our third speaker first, and then we will come back to you, Swapna, okay? Yeah. Let me move on to our third speaker, Ms. Jolene Lam. Jolene is my fellow country person from Singapore. She's the founder and CEO of Urban Tiller in Singapore. It is dedicated to its mission of reimagining what next generation food supply chains can look like in cities. Urban Tiller is Asia's first integrated farm-to-table Agritech startup that delivers fresh produce within 8 hours of harvest. The business is committed to supporting sustainable agricultural methods and smallholder farmers, giving consumers a truly safe and sustainable way to eat directly from the source. While in the space of agri-logistics, Urban Tiller also focuses on integrated customer experiences that provides farmers with real-world data and support with increasing the efficiency and sustainability of agricultural practices in cities. Urban Tiller was founded in Singapore in August 2020 and subsequently commenced operations in Hyderabad, India in December of that year. They are looking forward to growing to 20 more cities in the Asia Pacific and South Asia in the coming years. So Jolene graduated from the Yale NUS College and UWC of the Adriatic and entered the agri-food space after organizing a series of programs in agri-food tech in a previous education tech venture. So Jolene, so please do share with us, what led you to the whole agri-tech food sector?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. Really excited. To TJ's question, what led me into the agri-food sector was COVID, right? That's basically what happened. I think behind the introduction that TJ gave, what's missing is also that it was a very, very unexpected journey for me. I had left my corporate job, I think sometime in February 2020, without any idea what was going to happen. And that was when sort of I committed myself again to education as a venture. That was the first time I turned entrepreneur. And over there, it really became an effort of thinking about how young people see the working world and see different industries. And now, given that climate change and sustainability are such a huge part of our conversation every day, my team in that startup, we saw the opportunity to bring real world industry partners to work with students to understand what real world jobs in CSR, ESG really look like, and the opportunity and challenges that really face people in my generation in the next 10 to 20 years to come. And that was really how I started talking to the farmers, the food tech people, the VCs, people who are innovating in the space and trying to play a part in this really age-old industry of agriculture, and also how it's fitting into more cosmopolitan city consumption centers that we see right now in Asia. So Singapore and Asia are sitting on a food crisis. We have 30 billion mouths to feed. And I think that's going to be really, really interesting in how we innovate to become a little bit more sustainable, more customer-centric, and also to be tech-enabled to ensure that the livelihoods of our farmers and our customers are fair and equal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that quick sharing. I'm sure our participants will be, eager to hear more later.
Yeah.
Let me check if Swapna is back with us.
Hello, TJ. Am I audible now?
Hi, we are hearing you a little bit soft. Yes. Yeah, we may need you to just increase your volume a little bit.
Yeah, it is already on the highest side.
Okay. So, Swapna, because we had some technical difficulties here earlier, but back to you. The floor is yours. Please do share with us, what got you to go into the sector that you're in and what you're doing right now.
Very first, thanks a lot, TJ, for the fantastic introduction that you gave about me. I'm extremely sorry that I lost you all for a few moments there. There have been little unstable internet over here. Yes. Technology has been life-saving for us, but then there are sometimes such problems occur and then we cannot help. So now when it's coming to my story, I have been into real estate business since more than a decade now. And but my professional journey actually started as an educator. My husband was a defense officer. He was transferred to new places across India every 2-3 years. Then I joined the services run schools wherever he was posted. And I was very happy and satisfied being an educator and imparting my knowledge with the kids. But then we decided to buy a house. And to tell you frankly, it was the turning point for my entire career.
I found this entire process of house buying not only time consuming but also complex and draining and tiresome. It involved like you are supposed to find good and reputed developers, then finding the properties which are suitable to our preferred location and also the budget, then visiting all these projects, negotiating the price because this is what happens in India here, and so on. And it was always at the back of the mind whether I got the right deal or not, if I'm going to get a nice or good quality house or not, if I'm going to get the timely possession or not. It was always there. It kept hounding me. I felt that there must be thousands of other common people who must be facing the same problem and the same issues. So, getting into reality business after my husband took premature separation from defense services, it just felt right, as if it was the field for me. My goal was to mainly help and support the home buyers to get the best quality houses at the most affordable rates and with timely possession. I initially started with marketing and the sales of real estate products here, where I worked with many developers at many locations across India. It was going on well, but the small hitch where there was that I had no control over the quality of the construction and the commitment of timely possession. When I joined reality business, I had a purpose in my mind, and this was not happening. So I was very unsatisfied with that. Then I decided to get into construction and started providing DMS as well, that is development management services. Through DMS, my company started providing the right inputs regarding the buyer's needs to the developers since the time of the planning. Also assisted in finalizing the internal and the external amenities, then deciding the quality parameters according to the cost of the property. It helped both the parties, the customers and the developers to great extent. Both the parties were happy. But then being just a conventional seller had a lot many restrictions in reaching out to buyers. Also, the realty industry was going through quite a rough patch, not only in India but on the global level. So my organization was also hit by that. So I felt that now there was a requirement to bring some change if I wanted to sustain in the business, if I wanted to sustain all together. Then I discussed it with my team, and then we decided to take the help of the technology here. And this is how my first startup Kage came into existence. Kage is a digital application. It is India's first gamified reality sales engine. Kage provides an opportunity to the buyers to explore and to buy property online, sitting at home without actually visiting the site. Kage, to an extent, we can say that it has replaced the physical project site visit with its PropTech technology features. And it generated huge interest here in India, especially during the pandemic when people were not able to move out. Kage also aims at addressing the major pain points of the realty industry here, that is the timely sales and the long gestation periods of the sales. And for this, Kage launches various gamified events such as housing draws, flash sales, and e-auctions after pre-negotiation of the prices on behalf of the buyers. This is what Kage does. It gets the least prices for all the buyers, and the consumers then can buy the houses at exclusively discounted rates through Kage app. And during my journey as an entrepreneur, I realized all the difficulties and the problems that were involved in starting a new business, managing it, maintaining it, sustaining it, and making it successful. So, in order to help other entrepreneurs, whether women or men, I joined CIMSME, that is Confederation of Indian Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, which is a non-profit organization where I hold the designation of state chairperson of Maharashtra. CMSME is the fastest growing entrepreneurial support network here in India and also in the world. And it aims to provide the best industry resources for building thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. For that, it arranges sustainable programs and initiatives across the wide scope of industries and disciplines. And it has been very satisfying to be part of this organization. So, TJ, this is my journey as an entrepreneur. There have been lot many ups and downs, successes and failures, achievements and struggles. happiness and frustration. But
Yeah. Thank you very much, Swapna, for sharing. Indeed, an entrepreneurial journey, it comes in a whole package. Yeah, there will always be ups and downs.
I'm
we will.
enjoying every bit of it.
Oh yes, I think the important thing, like you said, is that we enjoy every part of that journey. Yeah. So let me move on then to our fourth speaker. To wrap up even the first round of just hearing the stories. She is Miss Celia Boyd, co-founder of She Investment, Cambodia's first business incubator and accelerator that applies a gender and cultural lens. Since launching She almost 7 years ago, the social enterprise has grown from 3 co-founders to a team of over 35 across 5 provinces, becoming a leading organization supporting women entrepreneurs to scale and create economic, social, and environmental impact for communities. Celia's background is in international development, having worked with projects across multiple areas and geographies. She has been based in Cambodia for the past 6.5 years, focusing on building She Investments and specializing in women's economic empowerment through entrepreneurship. This year, she decided to step back a little bit, handing over the leadership to an amazing Khmer woman to lead the team forward in Cambodia so that she can focus on really strategy and seeing how she's vision of supporting women-led MSMEs can be scaled across the region. So thank you, Celia, for joining us this afternoon. Do share with us, your story. What led you to do what you are doing right now?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. So I guess the short answer would be that essentially I never really wanted to start a business or aim to do that. I think we saw a problem and a gap that wasn't being filled and tried to solve that, which is, I think, what any good business does, is they try to solve a problem for someone. So she brought together 3 co-founders, all with very different backgrounds and skills, to try to solve that problem and fill that gap. So as you said, my background is in international and community development. And in my mid-20s, I was kind of increasingly becoming aware of my role within that sector as a white Australian woman, or perhaps the role that I should not be playing. And my co-founders, their background is in business as an entrepreneur and in facilitation and training. So she is very much a mix of those things. So we started doing research, and we saw that in Cambodia, over 60% of businesses are already owned and run by women, but most of them are micro-sized and informal. So only around 2% of them are actually registered, and only around 27%, less than 30% of SMEs are owned by women. So there's this really big gender gap where women are very entrepreneurial and they were running most of the businesses anyway, but they were kind of stuck at this really micro informal size. So we believe that women are key drivers of economic growth and post-COVID drivers of economic recovery and rebuilding, and that they have the right to access business support services that they need to scale. So in 2015, we created the first business incubator for women with micro-sized informal businesses that is designed specifically for Khmer women and delivered by Khmer women in Khmer language. So the goal is essentially to support women to scale up their businesses so that we can see just as many women running SMEs as there are men.
Thank you very much for sharing that story. One thing is that's very consistent across all our speakers is, for our aspiring entrepreneurs, that they were opening their eyes and ears to see and to listen to the needs that were out there, and then they just went ahead to do it. They saw the need, they just went ahead to meet those needs. Now, before I go back to Celia for the next round of our conversation. For our participants that are joining us this afternoon, please feel free to use the chat box to just post any questions that you may have to our participants. Yeah. So let's get back to you again, Celia. In this last 6.5 years, as you have really engaged with different MSMEs, women entrepreneurs, maybe if you could share with us, what challenges have you seen for them that want to scale up? And I think more importantly, what practical steps do you feel that women entrepreneurs, innovators in Cambodia and maybe just in general, what steps can they take or do they need to be able to thrive in this post-pandemic environment, post-pandemic world?
Sure. I mean, I guess there are a lot of challenges for sure. There are numerous challenges. There's a reason why the majority of micro-sized businesses are run by women, or why there are, most small, medium, large businesses tend to be male-owned. A lot of those challenges can be gendered, even, things like family barriers, decision-making power within households, businesses. When we're talking about emerging economies, most businesses are family businesses, and we tend to see a lot of women doing the majority of the work and running the business, but they're pretty much unpaid labor, even if a lot of other family members are earning an income. So there's quite a lot of stereotypical and gendered barriers in place when it comes to women entrepreneurs in particular. I think that in terms of practical steps, it sounds really simplified, I suppose, but I think that the most important thing is just that you need to consider the context and the environment that those entrepreneurs are working in. So what are the specific barriers facing them? Not women in general, because there's all kinds of different women or people who identify as women, but within the particular context or country or culture or whatever it might be that you're working in, what are those barriers facing those people? Is the business environment enabling? Is it accessible for them? Maybe they need training or mentoring. Maybe they just need access to information or digital skills to be able to access that information. Maybe they need better government structures that actually make the process of starting and registering a business easier. And I mean, essentially, the business world has been designed under a patriarchal structure. So it's designed for men. So if you want to support MSMEs, the majority of which are run by women, and you want to particularly support women entrepreneurs to scale, then you need to listen to them and design solutions for them, rather than expecting them to fit within the structures that have already been created and that are not necessarily working for them, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think it's a common issue across many jurisdictions. Yeah, so thank you very much. Let me move on to Jolene. You have brought tech into a traditional, I would call it a traditional sector, that has seen really much change in recent years. What vision do you have for your business and your sector? And I guess along the lines of the practicality and advice, in your journey as an entrepreneur, what advice do you think you can also give the aspiring entrepreneurs venturing into traditional sectors? I know it's a bit of a long shot, tall order, but I think we would love to hear your thoughts on this.
No worries. Thank you so much. I think that's a really good place to start. Agriculture as a sector is old, but I mean, it has continued to evolve, right? So I think one thing that we notice is that a lot of people are trying to bring tech into agriculture. Over the journey that I've had, what I've noticed is that it's very difficult to bring tech into agriculture if you start as a tech startup, if you start as a tech player who intends to sell it as a service, who intends to offer something to farmers that they may not even need, right? So I think a lot of my journey was focused on really understanding what the farmers needed, what the stakeholders were doing, what they looked like, what they needed, but also understanding the difficulties to adopting tech. Right. And I think this is a really good point. A lot of the mentors along the way and people I've spoken to, you realize that smallholder farmers, especially in Asia and around the world, really, a lot of the time it's not that they don't want to use tech, but getting buy-in from them to actually use tech and integrate tech in their business requires so much effort, right? One being the cost of paying someone for technology that they don't know whether or not will work. Most of the time, they already are very busy running their own operation, trying to get things done, trying to keep costs low. And agriculture as a business overall has always had the problem of cost and price transparency. So with us, I think a lot of it is really realizing that the main pain point is that you need to first add value to their livelihoods. And you need to understand how different smallholder farmers have very different priorities. For example, in emerging markets in Asia, you have more than, I think, 55 million smallholder farmers, of which sometimes 50 to 60% could be women, right? And you need to think about, I think what I like to think about, age appropriate, culturally appropriate, gender appropriate tech, and what kind of value you're actually adding to them, in which part of their activities, how do you actually sort of maximize that kind of impact that you're adding to someone. For Urban Tiller, I think what we tried to do is that, look, we realized the problem was that smallholder farmers often didn't get reliable offtake from either supermarkets or other retailers, but actually creating a model where you are going to them every single day and you promise that, look, don't worry, here's a lot of data that we have about how people are buying, what your crops, what kind of feedback your crops are receiving, being able to then say, look, it's all a problem of financing, right? When you come down to it and you're able to offer that kind of buyback and that kind of offtake, what you're able to do is then to have leverage with the farmers to say, hey, this batch of kale, this batch of lettuce didn't seem to be growing so well. Could we actually sort of offer an IoT system to link up to your farm and then sort of learn in real time how to help you farm more efficiently, more effectively, and that actually gives you real value back. So I think every sector works like this to a certain degree, right? When you're trying to support smaller businesses, smaller holders, there needs to be a very, very good understanding of their daily pain points, and not just developing a product that focus on what you think might be good for them and what you think your technology could be used for. And I think that's been a very humbling journey. As an entrepreneur, that happens on both sides, right? I work with the farmers and then I also work with the customers. At first, the idea was crazy. The idea was, okay, let's deliver within 8 hours of harvest. What kind of, as Clay Christensen would say, what kind of job are you doing for your customer, right? And for us, it was really the fact that there was no access to on-demand fresh produce, like truly, truly fresh produce. And there was no one else in the market giving you a benchmark of when your food was harvested, where it was coming from. If you go to the supermarket, there's no differentiation between what's grown by a local farmer versus what was imported over thousands of miles, or grown in a situation which was not ideally sustainable, clean, traceable, safe, and things like that. So creating value for the customer was a different conversation. It was that, look, you're paying top quality for produce that looks like vegetables, tastes like vegetables, but is not giving you the nutritional impact that you need. We know that leafy greens, fresh produce, some of it loses up to 90% of their nutrient value within the first 24 hours of harvest. And really understanding the research behind nutrition, understanding how tech can help people make better decisions. But the last point that I'll end on is price parity. At the end of the day, there's a lot of value you can add to people, but at what cost, right? The moment you realize that customers don't pay for an idea, they pay for value actually added to their lives, that's when the conversation shifts. Most of my customers come to me and they come back again and again and they say, look, I didn't know that things grew here like that. I didn't know this was how things were done. But I buy your products because they are truly that fresh, they taste different. Now I want to have a conversation about sustainability. Now I want to understand the problem that you're solving. And now I'm trying to, really learn about where my food comes from and how I can play a part. So I think my biggest takeaway and advice to people who would like to think about a startup or a venture as a means of consumer education is to flip that question on its head. How can you give someone something to the point that they're so satisfied that they want to educate themselves? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the fantastic sharing. I like the point that you made earlier in that sharing about not bringing a perceived solution to that sector, but really listening, being a bit more entrenched in the ground, so that whatever solution you develop really meets the need. I think it's something for entrepreneurs, startups to take note of. Okay, let me then move on to Swapna. What more do you feel can be done to empower women entrepreneurs in India? And again, from your perspective, what advice can you share for our aspiring entrepreneurs wanting to step into the sphere of being entrepreneurs, having a startup, or being innovators? Swapna?
Yeah. Thank you, TJ. In India also, we have seen that it's mainly a male-dominated society. So in industries also, you see that there are more of males here than the female. But then we can see that the scenario now is changing. There have been more and more women who are joining businesses as well as MSMEs in India. The major factors responsible for this have been government intervention, which was very important, improved access to education and training and finances. So all this has led to increase in women-owned enterprises from 14% to 20% in the last decade itself. So even after all these things, there are still many challenges and problems that female entrepreneurs in India face, which are not common to their male counterparts. So there are many social, technical, and financial barriers that hinder the growth of women entrepreneurs here and the women-owned businesses. The major problems faced by the women in India could be mainly, as I just said, male-dominated industry. Then there is low risk-bearing ability, there is limited credit facilities, then lack of training, lack of networking, and managing family and work together, because in India, women are the main caretakers of the family. So all these problems the women entrepreneurs they have been facing. So there is still a need to empower and encourage women entrepreneurs here. There is a requirement to consider women as a specific target group in development programs. So the programs ensure that women are properly educated, properly informed and guided about the entrepreneurship and the countless opportunities that entrepreneurship has to offer. Women also need adequate training programs for organizational skills, managerial skills, and technical skills. Making women aware, especially women in rural and semi-urban areas, about the different initiatives which are run by the government of India is very essential these days. Promoting women entrepreneurs in micro enterprises is another way, because we can see that there is a large number of women in India who are engaged in informal economy. They are operating in the small scale sector, in cottage industries, and in micro enterprises. So, with proper governmental as well as societal support, these women can create sustainable, organized, and growth oriented enterprises with a vision. Also, government policies and regulations regarding business and industry can be formulated with the intent to mainly encourage the women entrepreneurs. This approach must, first they can review the existing regulatory framework and make necessary modifications in that. Second, they can take the vital steps to reduce the administrative hurdles which are involved. Third could be including easy and subsidized financing for women's businesses. Another key part of the strategy must be to facilitate the entry of women entrepreneurs into the areas where high growth is expected. So social incentives, then the tax rebates, duty cuts, also subsidized land and machinery can be provided to encourage women to enter into these emerging sectors. Special recognitions and awards also can be instituted for women participating in such target industries. It is going to add to the motivation and the encouragement for the women to join these industries. CMSME, that is Confederation of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, has been working with the same goal of empowering women entrepreneurs continuously by enabling collaboration, enabling mentorship, peer-based learning, networking, and so on. It keeps on arranging different programs, and to name a few, it has arranged Global Women's Business Summit, Global Women in Trade 2021, and so on. These are the suggestions which I do have to empower women entrepreneurs in India. And when it comes to women who want to step into entrepreneurship, startup, and innovation, I would like to say, first and foremost, do your research properly and thoroughly. Assess the market and the current demand in the market, and jump into the business where your aptitude, your knowledge, and your passion coincide. And assess your finance, research your products and services, write a efficient business plan, and define legal entities. This is very important. Researching the government schemes and initiatives which support your business is another important point here. To consult with the professionals and expand your network as soon and as much possible, because nowadays we all know the importance of networking. That's how we also met here, because of networking. And most importantly, be positive, patient, and flexible. We don't aim for failures, but failures are going to occur. It is part of life. So instead of getting bogged down or probably getting demotivated, discouraged by these failures, keep moving forward. Use these failures as the stepping stone to climb the ladder of the success. And yes, remember, the key is keep going.
Thank you very much, Swapna. Yes, indeed, keep going. Don't give up just because there's a hurdle. I think it applies really to all entrepreneurs. And thank you very much for that sharing. Samira, as a female entrepreneur in Australia, and I guess I will look at Australia being from a perspective of a more developed nation. Have you faced gender-related challenges in your journey? And if we were to look at the whole, perhaps Australasia region, what advice can you give to our aspiring entrepreneurs and innovators?
Yeah, this is definitely something that when the other speakers were talking about their journeys, some of the difference that I noted in my head about their journey and my journey. Being in Australia, I had a lot more opportunities, to be honest. So I actually can't say that I've faced any negative impacts for being a female in this space at all. To be honest, I actually received a lot of positive impacts, namely them being a lot of scholarships were available to me. So the Australian government's really has a huge initiative to encourage more females in technology. So not exactly entrepreneurship, but technology as a whole. So there were a bunch of things that I could apply to, and I was successful in getting those. And so they were a huge, first stepping stone into helping me get into the startup space, because with starting with the startup completely from scratch and creating a technology, there needs to be that upfront payment that you've got to make. And so that financial assistance that was available from the government was of huge help in accelerating that and allowing me to start. But, beyond just my female experience, there's a whole other element of just being an entrepreneur altogether within Australia and within especially the crypto space. Some of the challenges that I faced there were huge, actually. So there were huge legal hurdles that I had to get over, and also create some banking relationships with some of the largest banks in Australia. And for, to do that as a small company and even pre-launch, that was near impossible, right? So to overcome that and to be able to solve my problem, what I needed to do actually was to be connected with the startup community that then have access to those people that I connected in the legal space, in the banking space, in the government space. And so through those connections, I was then able to solve each of my specific problems. And so I think that's the best thing that you can do if you are tackling a huge problem, is to actually identify exactly what is the problem that you have, and then go to communities, startup communities, entrepreneurial communities, and seek out that advice, and they will connect you with the correct people. Because one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is to have the ego that you can create this mega giant idea that you have in your head all by yourself. This is definitely not something that you can do by yourself. So creating that team, that network, that mentorship surrounding you will be of an immense help, as it has been for myself. So I've been lucky enough now to be connected with some of the best minds in the legal space in Australia, and including the banking space. They've had over 40 years of experience, and now they're on our board. So having that, those big numbers of experience in your team has a huge positive impact. So that's my number one advice, really, is to seek out advice. And I think
thanks very much.
that's my little
Thanks
tips.
very much, Samira. And I would definitely echo your sentiments in that, let's not be afraid to seek out mentors, to seek out advice, because we don't have all the answers. I want to thank all our speakers for really, the wonderful sharing. I will now hand the floor over to my co-host, Lena, who will engage us in the Q&A, because we've got questions that have come from our participants. So Lena, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, TJ, and thank you to all of the women's inspiring speakers that have shared their journey of entrepreneurship. And we've seen in the chat box that Julian has very actively engaged in to answer one of the questions. Maybe it's better if we also hear out from the rest of the three speakers on embracing younger generations to be involved in entrepreneurship journey, and not, like Julian said, not only worrying about adding profit, but also bring value beyond to the community. So maybe we would like to start with Swapna. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. Yes, I would say that joining a business or being an entrepreneur is a very good solution for the young generation. And again, I'll say especially in India. We can say that the global economy and the Indian economy has been going through a rough patch because of pandemic, and there are other factors involved also. So this is the time that the younger generation try to find some new path rather than going for those 9-to-5 jobs, finding in corporates or maybe the private sector and the public sector. So when you do your own business, you do have the freedom to take the decisions. You know what to do. You know how to do it. You know what your idea is. And when you start something like this for yourself, for that, what you need is the passion and the love for what you are doing. And when you are doing your own business, then definitely the base for you doing it is this passion and the love. There is economic factor involved, of course, but it's more about your love for doing a particular thing. The way we can see our participants here, that they have been in something they feel passionate about, they really love doing. Same with myself. I wanted to join real estate because I had some reason, and I want to do it. I like to do it. So this is what gives you the success. This is what gives you the achievement. And as I said, yes, failures are part of life, but then it's because of the failures you become successful. If you don't see the failures, you will never get the taste of the success. So yes, I think this is the time for the younger generation to join the enterprises, to be entrepreneurs and prove themselves to themselves as well as to others, that what can they do, how can they be successful.
Okay, thank you, Swapna. Like you said, don't afraid to be failed and just keep going maybe. So Samira, we would like to hear out from you as well. So would you mind to share your thought?
Yeah, so I actually started Elbait when I was still in university. So I was in my final year of university, and I was I was doing three things at the same time. I was doing my final year thesis project and Elbait, and then also working at a renewable power station. So I got really kind of both perspectives of what my future might look like working in a corporate versus starting my own business. So when it came time to graduation, I had to make that decision of whether I go to full-time corporate or full-time being an entrepreneur. What made me decide to go full-time entrepreneurship is just the whole of, this is the perfect time for me. I don't have I don't have a mortgage at that point. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a husband. I've got no baggage. So I've got the most freedom that I will ever have in my whole entire life. And so I just took that risk, and I didn't take that risk with a certainty that I'm going to have money to support myself, that there is that financial risk that you will have to take, right? I even decided to locate. So I was from Brisbane, I moved to Melbourne for this. So I really took that leap financially, and also my location, my friends, and my network, all of that. I really went 100% into it. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing my journey with other young people, just to kind of tell them that, you can obviously go to that corporate time anytime in your life, but having that opportunity to go full deep dive into something that is fully yours and absolutely all of the successes is fully accredited to yourself, that is something that you really can't replicate. And look, even if your startup does fail, you have all of that knowledge, that experience, and all of that, just even character building through all of your failures to bring in now into a corporate setting, if it does go into a failure. But hopefully it doesn't, right? And hopefully you keep on making your business a success. But yeah, that's my passion about bringing young people more involved into this, is really that there is no negative into taking this journey. But obviously everybody's situations are different, financially, family, and all of that. But for me, myself, I just knew that this was the perfect time.
Okay, yes, I do agree. I mean, every journey in this life is all about taking risks. So just don't be afraid to take risks, maybe. And okay, maybe Celia, you would like to share something. And I also have seen your comprehensive answers to one of particular questions, but maybe you would like to share more on it. I mean, to overcome the financial literacy challenges and the solutions that she has provided in general. Over to you, Celia.
Sure, thank you. I mean, I suppose on the first point, I agree with a lot of what previous speakers have said, but there are also parts that I don't necessarily agree with. So for example, I absolutely agree that we need to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start something, taking a risk is a lot of the time really important. And when you're young and you don't have things holding you back, and that it's definitely the best thing to do. It's exactly what I did. The thing that I think we need to acknowledge, though, is that there's a huge degree of privilege in that. So if we're talking about the women that we support at SHE, very few of the women that we work with have anything to fall back on. So a lot of us from places like Australia, and speaking for myself, obviously, as a white woman, it's a different case. A lot of people come from a background of if we fail, we live in our parents' basement for a bit, you know, like there's things that we can we have a welfare system. That alone is huge. Most women in emerging economies in Southeast Asia do not have anything to fall back on, and taking a risk is not always an option. So most entrepreneurs across the world, most women entrepreneurs across the world start a business because they have to, not because they want to, not because they're passionate about something. They start something because they are trying to earn an income for their family. And so I think, so when we support a lot of women around the country, the question asked around urban versus rural, many of the women that we support are in urban areas. And we see a big difference between urban and rural. So urban in Phnom Penh, for example, we do see a lot of enterprises, a lot of entrepreneurs that, you know, they kind of start as a side hustle, or they're able to start with a level of capital. What we see with kind of lower income households or women in more rural areas is people getting into more and more debt that they cannot afford to get out of. And, you know, it's not that difficult to get a loan in a lot of countries, but people kind of tend to get loans and start businesses or try to grow businesses, and they don't actually have the support or the financial literacy to understand how to get out of that and how to grow their business to something that's kind of making money, and enables them to take more risks. So I think things like financial management skills are hugely important for any entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you're turning over $100 a month or, you know, however much that might be. But I know for me, like, I went from running a business that was like $20,000 a year to $1 million a year. And like, financial management skills was 100% the first thing that I should have done. I should have learned. Made a lot of mistakes. But I think I kind of merged two questions into one. Sorry, I moved very quickly from one to the other.
Sure, it's fine. Yeah. So yeah. Well, it's normal. I mean, when started the business, we want to earn the profit, but as time goes by, maybe we want also giving back to the community. So yeah, it's fine.
I guess on that, I've started 3 businesses now, and everyone is different. Everyone has different reasons for starting a business. My personal belief is that if you want to make profit, maybe don't start a business. Like, depending on the kind of, if you want to make heaps and heaps of money, there are a lot of ways to do that. But if you want to start a business, then there should be a problem that you want to solve. If you come at it from the beginning just to make profit, you're going to be very disappointed, I think, at least for the first few years.
Okay, thank you, Celia. A very interesting answers, obviously. And I think there are no more questions in the chat box, or maybe this time we would like to show the polling to know more about kind of topics that ERIA would like to focus on for our future webinars, because this webinar will keep on going to provide you with the 3 key points, solutions on entrepreneurships and then startups and innovations. But we would like to also know for others. So if you can answer one of the polling for all the audiences, it would be great. So my colleague will show. And then the second question is, we would like to know what kind of areas, activities that you would like to be engaged in the future. We would like to give you like 1 to 2 minutes to answers, and all of the speakers are also eligible to answers if you would like to. That would be nice, would be great.
I'm intervening very shortly because while we're waiting for the results, Jolene has been too successful in answering the questions to the chat box.
Yes.
We would like to hear from you if you have anything to share.
Yes. Apologize for not giving the floor.
No worries about that. No, I think there was a very interesting question in the chat box, and I think that's something that a lot of countries in Asia are thinking about. So it's an interesting time for the agricultural sector, but I think it's an interesting time for everyone because I guess I would not have turned entrepreneur without COVID. And I think it's a very, very interesting time to realize. So I completely agree with what Celia and Samira was saying about privilege. So I had gotten to a point where I realized I had nothing to lose, and that's when I actually turned entrepreneur, and I was like, okay, this is what it takes. I'm gonna throw it down the rabbit hole. If it doesn't come back, it doesn't come back. But you know, that's really I think that do or die kind of mindset in this period, which is not always super healthy. But I think it gave me enough to carry on sort of thinking about how to continue doing what I do, but also sharing that with as many people as possible and empowering others to also share in how your business can create value for others. I know it's not the easiest time for anybody to think about having nothing to lose, but I think collectively that's something that might help a little bit. I think that's what I tell my team. I'm like, well, I'll continue to pay you guys until I cannot, and then make sure that everyone has enough space. But I think that's never the starting point. Yeah.
Thank you, Jolene. So we have received the answers to the polling, and we would like to show it to you. Or if you haven't answered it, please answer it first. Okay, in the meantime, we got very interesting questions again. So because we still have time, maybe we would like to discuss more. So the questions first is about how can you compare the level of your engagement in terms of product role, business, and then the reproductive role, home or domestic responsibilities when you are starting your business. So maybe the last answer was from Jolene. So I would like to give the floor first to maybe start from Samira again.
To be honest, I feel like I really separated myself from my domestic roles when I did start my entrepreneurial journey. I moved out of home when I did that. So I don't think I can answer this in a way that really respects the full picture that is behind this question. So I think, yeah, I'll turn it over to the other speakers.
Okay, so given the fact of that answers, maybe anyone would like to answer first or share? Okay, Swapna.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree with Samira when she says that she has already done it, and it is important to separate your domestic life from your work life. I think that is the best practice to do, so that it is the time that you can concentrate on your work as well as you can concentrate on your family, on your children and other domestic responsibilities, whatever you have. Yeah, but in my case, let me be honest, I do find the separation little difficult. So it does happen that when there is a family time, then I get some call, or maybe I have a meeting or something like that, or I have to take out that time for that particular work there. Yes, I'm still working on that. And one more thing is that there is also a lot of support. The support system here is very strong. So lots of support from the family to me to handle my work life and at the same time to make sure that the domestic life also goes on without any sort of interruption or something. So this is how it works for me. As I said, I'm not able to separate it, but still I'm able to manage it quite efficiently, and I'm able to coordinate both the lives quite well.
Lina, you're on mute.
Yeah. Anyone would like to edit more answers to that? I saw Celia was unmuted like a few minutes ago.
I think there was an accident.
Okay,
Probably got the right. I can answer the next question though.
Okay, there was a next question coming.
Yes.
I mean, to the previous question, what I would say is I think it's very impossible. I think like there's a fantastic book called Women's Work by Megan K. Stack. It made me think a lot about how when you're an entrepreneur, you're raising a village, all the odds are stacked against you. And your own family is another village, and sometimes you end up having another village raise your own family and raise your own village while you go do something else, and that's immensely tied to privilege, immensely tied to the support systems that you have. And I think COVID has made it a lot harder to separate anyway. So I'd say it really has become a labor of both love, but also just trying to see that, okay, we can't be separated right now. There needs to be a middle ground somewhere, right? Where how do you come to terms with certain things spilling into each other? And also whether or not home and domestic spaces are safe spaces even, and how do we sort of like get time away from that? So I think it's very, very tough, especially for women. So deep respect and admiration for all the women here who, you know, are trying to run that simultaneously.
Yes. Yeah, I do agree about that. So Celia, the next question is yours, and then this will be the final questions and answers about this session. Over to you.
No pressure then. So was the final one was what is the social responsibility as an entrepreneur or businesswoman during this pandemic? So we in Cambodia, we're just coming out of lockdown, and that it's different in every country, obviously, and there's a chance we may go into another lockdown. And what I've found that when you're running a business in a country that doesn't have an adequate welfare system in place, your social responsibility as an entrepreneur, whether you want it to or not, increases significantly, and you are suddenly responsible for the livelihoods of people that can't access the services that should be available to them. So, as an example, before COVID started, I had 4 businesses and over 60 employees. And I had one business that scaled significantly during COVID, surprisingly, because it had a different business model. And then 3 other businesses that were in hospitality and have now reduced to 1 business. After 15 months of trying to keep people employed and things in a country that does not have welfare, doesn't have JobKeeper, JobSeeker, any of these things. So the burden of that on an entrepreneur, I mean, for me, it's okay. I have a lot of support. I have a really amazing team, and I'm able to take a certain level of risk, but we support a network of, about 500 female entrepreneurs around the country who are having a really, really difficult time. They're employing thousands of people, and they feel a level of responsibility, of social responsibility for not only keeping their livelihoods going, but if they're locked down in a red zone that doesn't have access to food and water, then who's going to send that to them if not their employer or their family member on the other side of that fence? So it really depends on the context within which you're working and the social responsibility that you're able to take on with what you have. But it's difficult, like financially and emotionally, it's very hard, I think, for entrepreneurs during this time when they become a lot more than an employer, I guess.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Celia. I do agree that each of the countries has different contexts of problems. So I'm sure some of entrepreneurs will also providing solutions by adding any value of their business. So at this moment, we have received so many answers to the polling. Thank you for your answers, and would like to show the results to you. That the results shows, okay, this topic is the most interest to our audiences. I mean, women in digital economy. And then the second answers was about the providing practical tips and tools for entrepreneurs. I'm sure most of the audience is here would like to embracing the journey of entrepreneurs, because one of the reason is because hearing from our great entrepreneurs here. Thank you for inspiring all of the audiences to be entrepreneurs as well. And about the women and digital economy, please be ensured that ERIA will continue to work on these issues. And having said that, please also monitor our website at www.eria.org. And by this session, by this polling, I would like to hand over the floor again to Julia to give the closing remarks. Thank you to every of our speakers, Celia, Julien, Swapna, and Samira, to share your thoughts, as well as sharing inspiring sessions today. I hope to see you again someday in our next collaborations. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Lina, and thank you to all speakers. I think we had an amazing conversation, also very personal and very sincere at times. We are running out of time, so it's really time to close. But I just would like to go back to something that Celia mentioned before. The fact that many entrepreneurs around the world, they actually start a business out of necessity. And this is not a characteristic only that applies to developing countries. It actually applies also very much to developed economies, especially in times of crisis. This is, for instance, I'm originally from Europe. What we have seen in Europe after the big financial crisis in 2007, 2008. And we are in the middle of another big crisis because of the pandemic. So it's very, very likely that we will see the number of entrepreneurs, necessity-driven entrepreneurs to go up, which is why it's so important to talk about skills, mindset, and basically equip people that will have no other choice to become an entrepreneur, to do it, with more skills, more competencies, so that, many of them hopefully will become successful. And this is one of the goals of this conversation we're having actually throughout this webinar series this year. I think there has been another link that's been shared. It's about a survey, a global survey on researchers and scientists. I know that many, many people in the audience are actually researchers or working for universities. Feel free to have a look at this survey and fill it in if you are interested. Because if we manage to connect enough data on ASEAN, we will actually collaborate with OECD to produce a technical note. I think I just gave the last housekeeping information I had to. Thank you so much again, in addition to my co-hosts, TJ and Lina, to all speakers. We really hope we will be able to stay in touch because we learned so much from you. And we look forward to welcome you back in 4 weeks time, with a session that is all about collaborations across different actors of innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems. Stay tuned and see you soon. And thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, everyone. Awesome sharing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.